It's the Jim Fannon Show. We've come to take your mind.
Am I still on? Here we go. Josh Denny is in the house. No script as usual, but this is when we used to do the Thursday night podcast. Doing more guests these days. Buckle up. Enjoy the show. My brother, the links are in the show description wherever you're watching it. Fake Book, YouTube on the Trew.Tube channel, D-Live, and Twitch. So if you need to find them, man, I ran out of time trying to put all the links up of where to find you, bro. You are like a busy man, and I just listened to your latest podcast that you did on Valentine's Day. That was vicious, good guest. And then I just finished your piece on Kanye West. We'll talk about that later, but just for the people that don't know who Josh Denny is, why don't you take a couple minutes and tell us who you are, where you came from, how'd you get to this point, bro?
Yeah, I really double dipped in the chocolate for Black History Month, didn't I? Had Adam Coleman on the podcast, a great author. Are you familiar with his stuff?
No, not until tonight. It's the first time I've heard him.
Yeah, really, really cool dude, really sharp, and Adam represents what I love the most about people is when they sort of diverge from what they are, what's expected of them, right? People would look at Adam as a black father in this day and age and have all these sort of predispositions or conceptions about how he's supposed to be or what he's supposed to think politically or any of those things. And in many ways, he kind of breaks the mold and makes very good points for a differing viewpoint than I think a lot of Black America has. And sort of same thing with Kanye. I think my interest in him is, similar in that regard. But for people who don't know, I'm I've been calling myself the most canceled comedian on the internet. And people go, well, how is that possible? You haven't been deplatformed yet, but it's more about the attempts than the successful takedowns. So I do have the best takedown defense of canceled comedians. But I definitely will tell you I've had more takedowns attempted against me than anybody who ever fought Khabib.
Well, they're still trying to get you fired from the Food Network, and you haven't been there for like 4 years. That's the best.
As long as that's in the bio, that's never going
I love that
anywhere.
you leave that in the bio and they continue to disassociate themselves with you. It's awesome. Every time they come for you, they go, he hasn't been here for a long time. And you weren't not renewed or canceled from the Food Network because of anything controversial. They just didn't pick you up. Is that true? Or
yeah, listen, it's possible from their end. Like, I'm only privy to the conversations we had, but I know we asked for more money and they said no.
Right.
And that could have been because of the kind of comedy I was doing and, playing the utmost devil's advocate. If nobody really took a deep dive into my stand-up or anything before I got hired there, that could have come as a surprise. But it was in the report that the fucking private investigation company that did the research on me, put out. Anytime they hire a new host and sign them to a futures contract, they have this firm that does a deep dive on you, criminal, social media, everything, your credit. And then we had this big call with the network about what came out in the report. And they had just 2 questions. They were like, yeah, there's this one, there's talk on here that there was on this podcast where they called you a white supremacist. And I go, yeah, we would do racial bits and one guy would be incredibly racist and then the other guy would pretend that he's being serious. I was like, it's comedy. And they just went, oh yeah, okay, comedy. And there was no problem with it because this was 2016 and people hadn't lost their fucking minds yet. So yeah, nobody had an issue with it. And then, I don't know that any of my social media stuff or whatever was a factor. I can tell you there were a couple things leading up to when they didn't renew my contract that it could have been, right? I got into it with Adam Richman over there. We got into a back and forth Twitter fight and I called him a piece of shit. And, I got a call from my producer was like, don't do that. Don't go back and forth with him. Like, you guys both work on the network. And I go, yeah, well, he started it. So
he started it.
He did. Well, what he was doing is he would go in and when people would shit talk my show, he would go in and like their tweets and comment. And I'm like, all right, so you're being a fucking pussy right now. And you're literally patting someone on the back who's talking shit about my show. Mm-hmm. And if you don't like my show, why don't you just fucking say so, dude? And so, yeah, I called him out for being a passive aggressive pussy. And he was like, I don't even know who you are. And I go, well, everyone that we went to that filmed at, or every place we filmed at that you had also filmed at, they all know who you are and nobody had any nice things to say about you. And then he went off and he was like, I called every restaurant that you went to that I went to and they said you're lying. And I was like, only a fucking insane person would do that. Like, what insane person would be like, let me call every restaurant that you went to in your show that I also went to in my show and just be like, hey, Josh Denny said you said I'm a piece of shit. Did you say that? First of all, who's going to be honest to him when confronted like that? Probably not many people. Second, everyone that you happened to get when you rung in today was working on the day you filmed there 10 years ago. Nobody, no turnover in the restaurant business. They're not famous for that at all, right? So, like, you just happened to get everyone on the horn that were there when you were there 10 years before me. Get the fuck out of here, dude. So yeah, he's a lunatic. And every other host on the Food Network was like, yeah, Adam's a cunt, just ignore him. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to ignore him. If he's going to be a cunt, I'm going to call him a cunt on the internet in front of everybody. And that's what it is. I'm not the barefoot Contessa. I'm a shit talking comedian. I'll bury you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
funny. That's the word that got. Well, they tried to cancel me, but that's what it all came down to, using that word. And I've used it since. But
which one, cunt?
Yeah.
The British use it like a term of endearment.
I know. It's like you never seen Ricky Gervais or dumb fucking cunt. Yeah, everything's a dumb fucking cunt.
Jim Jeffries' first 3 specials, I think that's the only word in them.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And that's just proof that, like, you can just go, no, I agree with all the popular political stuff, and it's fine, right? Like, as long as you just bend the knee to the masters, you could have done anything.
Yeah, well,
right?
It's funny because another girl in my community was guilty of doing the same thing to the same person, and she apologized to the mob, and she's right back in.
Of course.
Yeah. And they're still coming for me anonymously, and I'm in the Dominican Republic. I mean, I left Canada on the 22nd of October because they closed exiting the country to vaccinated people only, and I never wanted to be trapped in my own country, so I left.
At the beginning of the show, you said, it's 8 o'clock, we're going live. And I go, 8 o'clock, this motherfucker's in the middle of the ocean. Because it would be 7 in New York, and it would be like way different time in the UK. So I was like, where the hell is Jim?
Yeah, we don't fall back in DR. I said that the next Canadian politician that promised not to fall back in fall, switch the clocks, would be elected because it's just so stupid. What the hell do you want to see the sun going down at 4:30? But speaking of money in the Food Network, I think this might be in one of the links in the show description. There was a site, I don't know, some wiki something site that said that your estimated net worth was $1.5 million. Can I borrow $5, bro?
Yeah, no shit. I wish it was 1.5 million. The closest my net worth ever got to 1.5 million was actually when I was 23. And I joined Crocs Shoes as an operations manager, and they gave me a bunch of stock And at one point, that stock was worth about $980,000. That's the closest I've ever been worth that.
Wow.
If I were to loan you $5 today, I would have to figure out where my next $5 is going to come from, my friend. So, yeah, it's I always love those things when they're like, yeah, it's all those celebrity net worth websites. They go, oh, this person's worth. Basically, what they did was they took the number of episodes up to the point where they wrote that and multiplied it by $1 million. And it's like Seinfeld made $1 million an episode at the end.
Right. Yeah.
Nobody on the Food Network is making $1 million an episode at all.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even think there's a show that has a budget, a total entire budget of $1 million an episode on the Food Network. I knew we were screwed when Food Network got acquired by Discovery this summer after my show premiered, and the CEO of Discovery, president of Discovery, came out and he said, you know what we love about the Food Network and all these Scripps channels is that they don't cost any money and we don't have to spend any money on talent. And I was like, oh yeah, good time for me to have asked for a raise.
Well, Gavin's not paying you. You don't have a big budget on Gavin. You got 2 shows on Gavin's now, but you haven't done one since, you haven't done Next Week Tonight since December last year. But
yeah,
I did watch Big Uglies this week. That was great.
Yeah, we finished season 1 of Next Week Tonight. Actually, the call I had right before this was the writers' meeting for season 2. So we're about to kick that off.
Oh.
And I think what's
a writers' meeting entail? Like
where we actually get together and start talking about ideas for this season's episodes.
Well, who are you collaborating with?
I have 2 other writers, buddies of mine, that are stand-up comics.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So yeah, they're and I kind of want to keep who they are secret until we come out because I think it'll be fun. It'll be more fun that way.
You gonna bring them on the show and out them?
Yeah. No. I would love to. They've all been guests on my podcast before.
Okay.
I think, so.
Great.
But
and the show you did with who was it with Gavin? I can't remember. Tim.
Oh no, Sam Tripoli.
Sam Tripoli, yeah, I'm not familiar with him, but he was it was a good dynamic with you 3 guys.
Yeah, it's fun. You know, Sam's got the biggest conspiracy theory podcast I think out there now.
Oh, does he? Okay.
Tinfoil Hat. Yeah. So
right.
You know, when you get the 3 of us together, you get Sam who's kind of off the deep end with conspiracies. You get Gavin, who just really knows his shit socially and politically. And so when I get to sit in a room with 2 people like that and I get to just play funny guy third chair, that's my favorite position.
Yeah, well, Gavin, for the first time, I watched him just lay back and wait for his chance to talk. He wasn't steamrolling. You guys kind of ran the show, and he just kind of chirped in here and there.
Well, it's always tough when you're the streaming guy in, you know, because I ran into this with doing Kumia the other day. If you have a delay at all,
right.
You know, it's a nightmare because I think I have a space, and then when I start to talk, he doesn't hear it right away. So he doesn't want there to be silence, and so we just kept stepping on each other. And it's related to technology. But I think it came together really well in the Tinfoil Hat episode with Gavin.
No, it was great. What'd you do with Kumia?
I just did Anthony's show on Monday, I think.
Oh, you're going to be on Compound then?
No, I did it on Monday.
Oh, it was live.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. I've been watching him a lot more only because, I've met so many of you characters through the Censored.tv platform, and Kumia is one of them, I think I joined, what's the guy from New York City, the guy that chain smokes, the comedian. Is he on Compound? Oh, shit, I'm bad with names when I'm doing a live broadcast. He's from New York City, chain smokes cigarettes. I don't know. I had him on the show a while ago. It's still one of my best podcasts, but I think I subscribed after I interviewed him, and then I couldn't get into Kumia all that much. But now that I see them every Wednesday, and sometimes even live on Compound Censored, it's he's kind of similar to Gavin in the way he just straight up shoots. I love it.
Well, I love Gavin and Anthony together. I think they're such a great dynamic, a good back and forth where, they're similar in the ways where they can really kind of riff off of the same topics together, but different enough to where it's not repetitive.
Mm-hmm.
Their styles of comedy are very, very different.
Yeah, and it's just like hanging out with a couple of them at the bar. They're just to and fro, back and forth. It's just like the good old boys. It's just like full on backyard party,
Yeah, that's the fun part about being around both of them. Like I never, when I'm around both of them in person, or either of them in person, dude, my sides hurt. I'm laughing so much. You know, and that whole compound group, it's like you get more than 2 or 3 people in a room, man. It is just, it's fun. That's what I got into comedy for, is for that kind of hang. And, you know, out in LA, that's just, I've never found that out here. Maybe a couple times where I'd be like in a green room and, you know, Sam would be there. And then like guys like Tom Segura and Bert Kreischer and, you know, Bobby Lee and Rogan. Like the hang can get like that sometimes with those guys. But there's also always just this element of like, hey, what are you working on? What are you doing? Oh, you did a special. Who'd you do yours with? So it's a lot of shop talk. Yeah. You know what I mean? And the nice thing about hanging out with Gavin and Kumia is that there really doesn't ever feel like there's an excess of shop talk.
Mm-hmm. Kreischer's one of my favorites. He seems like one of the nicest guys in comedy, and not a huge Tom Segura fan, but
that's weird because I'm the opposite. Like I like Tom as a comedian so much more, and a dude.
Yeah, I'm
and Bert is like, Bert is just Bert kind of reminds me of my older brother, where he's like, when you're around him, he is fucking on 24/7.
Right.
And it's just you don't get a break from it. But yeah, both really friendly, you know, fun dudes. They've all been very nice to me the times we've worked together. And, you know, I met Tom. I met Tom like 12 years ago in Los Angeles. We were both doing a show together at the Improv. And, you know, back then he was like just starting to, I think he had just done his first CD. He hadn't even done I think he was about to do a Comedy Central Presents. And then like a year later, he started going on the road and opening for Rogan around the country and internationally. So, you know, you think about how long it takes to like blow up as a stand-up. You know, he was at the level that I'm at fucking 12 years ago, you know?
Really?
And now he's, you know, he's a superstar. You know, they just did that big, probably $100 million deal for YMH Studios, where they're going to be doing their podcast and a bunch of others for iHeartRadio, I think, was the parent company.
Right.
So, you know, good for those guys.
Yeah, stand-up comedians, or stand-up comedy's got to be the most difficult thing you can do on stage. Like, I mean, you know, I always say I'm hilarious, but like I've never, and that's one of my, probably on my bucket list of, you know, try to get up and do even a 10-minute bit where you can make the room laugh. It's got to be one of the hardest things to do in the arts.
Yeah. Yeah, it's, you know, I find that doing Next Week Tonight helps with my stand-up, because a lot of those rants, you know, the show's pretty simple format. There's a headline portion and then kind of 2 rant portions. And generally the rant portions are like premises that I'm developing for stand-up. And so the cool thing is, when you have the benefit of editing, which I do with Next Week Tonight, I can like run through the bit and do different takes and different versions, and then I can chop it up however I want for the show. And then boom, the bit is done. Like I have the bit finished and recorded in a way that I can now take out and do at shows or whatever if I want. You know, and add any sort of crowd participation elements that you can't get from Next Week Tonight or anything like that. So, you know, that's one of my biggest beefs with comedians, is I don't ever really feel like they use the mediums to their fullest potential. Like if you're going to do a stand-up special and the medium is video, and all it is just a recording of a live show, it's like you're not really utilizing the medium to its full potential.
Why don't you hit on the Kanye piece, because I was so impressed with your writing skills. You know, you say you're a writer, and I've heard, you know, I see people saying that you're a great writer on Twitter and whatnot. So I went and it's a deep piece, and you go everywhere with it. So to start by telling us the title.
Yeah, so the title of the article, I've been doing this column almost weekly for the Vegas Take, which is a friend of mine's site out of Las Vegas, my buddy JD Sharp. And the Kanye piece is titled How 400 Years of Slavery Could Sound Like a Choice. So obviously, you know, the idea of the article came from the pushback he got from that moment in I want to say it was 2018. I'm pretty sure it happened like a few weeks or maybe months before my thing went down in May of 2018. But, I remember when all that broke off, and I remember thinking in that moment, like, I kind of get where he's coming from. And then I started watching his documentary. Have you watched it?
No, I haven't seen it yet, but
so
that article made me want to watch it.
It's incredible. I finished it last night. The 3rd chapter came out yesterday, and it kind of like covers everything from after his record deal and his first album came out to now. So it's very compiled. It's a lot of information crammed into 90 minutes of his life. But some of that has to do with the fact that the documentarian and he lost touch for many years and didn't really work together for many years. So there's kind of like a gap that they sort of jump over, like a time lapse. But what's interesting about Kanye is I do think he kind of represents this weird space we are in time where if people, this is why I don't believe in things like anxiety or depression per se, because what ends up happening is if you're somebody who's diagnosed with one of these conditions like bipolar or BPD, there's such a stigma that comes with it to whenever you say things people don't like, they just go, oh, he's off his meds, or oh, he's having a manic episode. And it gives people the right or the ability to dismiss what you're saying as crazy, which is kind of wild to me that in this time where things are so progressive that we're very quick, people are both very quick to use their quote unquote mental illness as a crutch, but they're also willing to use it as a crucifix for people who say things they don't like and agree with. And so the article goes on to unpack what he meant by 400 years of slavery sounds like a choice. And then it kind of goes back and chronicles not just how I discovered or how I came to find out who Kanye was and start listening to his music, and a little bit of backstory on me, but it also kind of takes you through some of the lyrics in his first album and everything else, and saying that I think people misunderstood what he was saying all those years ago in those songs. And if you look at what he's saying now, he's kind of been saying these things all along, and it's more of an indictment of Black culture. It's an indictment of Black values. And a lot of the stuff we talked about on my podcast with Adam Coleman is the idea that, most of the problems in the Black community come from within the Black community. Mm-hmm. And that's the 300-pound elephant in the room that nobody ever wants to talk about. And if you do it with my face, you're immediately labeled a white supremacist. And if you do it with Larry Elder's face, you're also labeled a white supremacist.
He's the black face of white supremacy. We all know.
Yeah,
that.
I mean, so you just can't fucking win. And, so I really think Kanye is maybe the last hope of, somebody who could maybe break through the culture and change the way people think about their problems or their illnesses or whatever, ailments or afflictions they believe are preventing them from getting to where they want to be in life. He's one of the last hopes, and I find him a very interesting and inspiring dude for that. So that's why I wrote the piece.
Yeah. And, it's almost like if you're white, we can't discuss the problems in the Black community, even though they're glaring. And, I've been saying for, I don't know how long that, the number one problem we have in society right now is fatherlessness. And especially when you look at the Black community. I know you touched on that
Big
in the
issue,
article
yeah.
and the podcast with Adam as well. And so I hear you when you say, Kanye seems like the last hope because, they demonize guys like Larry Elder, who I think is just a fantastic, brilliant man who can speak well to the issues. But it's just like, the feminists will say no uterus, no opinion on abortion or whatever. And I was surprised to hear that you, it's always one of my questions that I find interesting answers to is like, what have you changed your speed on? What have you spoken to? And I love the way you put it. Like, if we don't speak to people that have differing opinions, we're stuck in our own echo chamber and we never change our opinion on it. So I was surprised to hear that you're a radical pro-lifer now.
Yeah, well, and it came from doing a podcast with a friend of mine, Adam Yenzer, who's a conservative comedian, was a writer on Ellen for many, many years, which surprises a lot of people to find out because he's openly conservative and yet was writing on Ellen's show for a long, long time. And now does a lot of stuff with the Babylon Bee. So if you're a Babylon Bee fan, he was in the sketch that I did with the Bee where we played undercover police officers trying to stage the insurrection. And then But he's done a lot of stuff and continues to do a lot of stuff with those guys over there at the B. Very funny comedian. But we had a conversation about it on my podcast, and I used to have what I call the uber libertarian point of view of like, well, you're not going to stop it. We shouldn't have laws around it, and people could do whatever they want to do.
Right.
But when he posed it to me in a way of like, it's the only exception we make for allowing one person to electively end the life of another person.
Mm-hmm.
When you start to look at it that way and you go, hey, so either murder's okay or it's not okay.
Right.
Where if we're going to make a concession for that, then where are all the other places we can make the concession for? And I think if we're going to try to say that we live in a society where, people's lives are sacred, then I don't think abortion as the way it's practiced today can be a part of that. And also society helped me change the way I feel about it too, because when women say bullshit today, like it's the hardest thing a woman ever does. I believe that 22 years ago when I was in high school, and the girl who got the abortion in a religious town was like shunned and had no friends, and like ended up having to go to school at the Annex Learning Center, like, and her school was from like 3 to 9 when everybody, like when that girl is like shunned like the Amish do. I believe, it's a hard choice to make. But today they give you a trophy and slap you on the ass and tell you to get the fuck out there again. It's like, it is not it's a hard thing to have a child these days. Mm-hmm. If a woman stuck to her guns as a teenage mother and was like, I don't believe in killing, and even though it's not ideal, I'm going to have the child.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a much more noble choice, and that's really the hard choice today. It's not hard for women to get abortions. They have punch cards. They think it's a fucking joke. And I do think that the way we have, like I remember when I was young and Bill Clinton gave that famous speech on abortion saying that it should be safe, legal, and rare. And we have just fucking proven as a society that if it's legal, it will not be safe and it will not be rare, because we're savages. It's Sodom and Gomorrah. We will only ever adhere to the guidelines that society sets for us. And if we just, it'll be the fucking purge if we roll back some of these things. So I think that's one where we just go, listen, you just don't get to decide who lives and who dies. Humans don't get to do that to each other. And, and then on top of it, it's like, to me, you have so many people waiting to adopt children in this country who can't have kids. So the same side that is super pro gay marriage, and my philosophy on marriage is very libertarian. I don't think the government should be involved in it at all. It sounds like a private contract between two people.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
But if you're going to be super pro same-sex marriage, why are you getting rid of the adoptable fucking inventory for these gay guys to have children?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So gay men and women are on like 5-year waiting lists to have children to adopt. And we're just throwing the inventory in the trash. It just seems like a bad supply demand conundrum that we're in.
Mm-hmm.
And listen, you can see plain as day, like, government is big on abortion because it's population control. It's the same reason they're so pro-gay. They shouldn't care about any of these things. That's not their responsibility in government. The government's role is to do essentially 3 things, right? Maintain order, uphold municipalities, right? Make sure our roads and our infrastructure is right and everything else, and to settle disputes, right? Other than that, anything that is not necessarily those 3 things, well, those are the purposes of laws, right? I'm kind of extrapolating out and saying that's the purpose of government, but that is the purpose of laws. Laws are intended to do one of those 3 things: maintain order, uphold a morality in society, and to settle disputes between 2 people. Government's job should essentially be to allow those things to transpire with the least amount of influence and interaction. And we couldn't be further from that today with the way that our government functions. And so, yes, they're going to be pro-gay. They want to limit the growth of the population. Yeah, they're going to be pro-abortion. They're trying to limit the growth of our population. We haven't gotten to the level where they're going to try to forcefully genocide a bunch of us, unless you are of the ilk that believes that COVID-19 was designed specifically to do that, which is possible, and I've heard great theories on that.
Well, I think it's more the jab than the actual COVID. But
could be that too. I've heard
both,
that as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
where people go, yeah, well, the virus wasn't supposed to get out, but the vaccine is there to make sure that if you don't get the virus, they still get you. So, there's a lot of ways to look at it. But and that's what's amazing to me is like, women think that the government is behind abortion because it empowers them to have a choice over another person's life. That's not the reason. And nobody should be given that autonomous ability to make a choice about life or death over another individual. And so when Adam started explaining to me, if you just look at the baby as an individual, a citizen, which is the way we treat children born on U.S. soil, birthright citizens, then they have the same entitlement to the protections of the Declaration of Independence, the Bill of Rights, and the Constitution that every citizen has. And if that's the case, then where is that unborn fetus's life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness being protected in a legalized abortion state? And he made enough convincing arguments that it swung me over.
Well, I appreciate anyone that's flexible enough. And I've had a huge transition over the last 5 years on a bunch of different things. And you know what? I never really had a strong take on abortion before now. And now I land, with a belief that kind of goes with my Christian faith. Are you a believer? I didn't think you were, but maybe I was wrong. Yeah, it's very difficult for me to say that I'm a religious person because I grew up with so many influences from so many different faiths. Like I grew up Protestant, and then I had relatives that were very Catholic and would kind of really push that stuff on me. And then I had, then I moved to the Midwest where everybody was Lutheran. And so that was a little bit different. And then, my girlfriend's Middle Eastern, she's Baha'i. And then, but even through that, irrelevant kind of or unavoidable side thing is like when you hang out with Middle Eastern people, you find out that most of them are different religions. So some of our friends are Muslims, some of our friends are Jewish, some, so you have all these different exposures to different people and different faiths. Sounds awfully tolerant for a white supremacist.
Yeah, I'm doing a real bad job of being a white supreme.
Yeah, and you even delved into that in the Kanye piece about, the thought of having a black child because you've had black girlfriends and, how you wouldn't have that talk with your black son about how the world's out to get him and that he's going to be held back and that white cops are going to be trying to kill him at every turn, Yeah, I mean, and some of that comes from, I've talked about this a little bit on shows and stuff, but some of that comes from the little bit of time I spent with my mom's boyfriend who was black. His name was James. They were together for about 2 or 3 years between my dad and her next husband. And he had a baby who was like a year old or maybe younger while they were together. It was from his girlfriend before my mom. Young guy, I think he was like 28, Air Force veteran. But, his perspective on race in general was a big part of sort of shaping my outlook on things. And it's like, listen, all you can control in this life is the kind of person you are and what you put out into the world. And if that's dictated by what the world throws at you, you're just going to be a very unhappy person and you're not going to accomplish any of your goals. And so, I look at that and I feel like, man, you never know what the world is going to throw at a young black man, but you almost guarantee it when you set him up for it. I always use the Matrix analogy of the vase, right? That scene in the first Matrix movie where he goes to see the Oracle. Yeah. And she goes, don't worry about the vase. And he goes, what vase? And he knocks it over. Right. And she goes, now you're going to wonder if it would have happened had I not said anything. To me, that is the talk for young black men. I think parents give their young men and daughters the talk. And then they literally go out into the world expecting those problems, looking for those problems, looking for that trouble, and it fucking finds them. Mm-hmm. And the best way to avoid that from happening is to just not create that environment in the mind of your children. Right. And think about that. Take race out of it. If you fucking told your kids that they're only ever going to amount to so much because certain people in the world don't like them, will never like them, and will try to prevent them from being successful. Are you being a realist, or are you putting limitations on your children before they even go out into the world and discover what it is for themselves? I mean, I just think Gavin says the talk is child abuse, and I couldn't agree more with that sentiment. That, I think black parents having
the talk with their black children is fucking child abuse. You're literally sending them out there believing that they're going to be persecuted and murdered. And then that is going to create hostility on their end towards those individuals. And that's going to escalate problems. I see it happen all the time.
Yeah, you're actually creating a psychological filter for which they will see their whole entire life through. And it's no wonder we've got problems with race. I mean, I heard you say the other day, was it Morgan Freeman said, you know how you stop, here's how we end racism. Stop talking about it. Because every time we're more tolerant than we've ever been. North America is the most tolerant society in the world. And we have the left telling us that we're all bad. And that, in my country, my former country, hopefully, Justin Trudeau is lately just virtue signaling about how the RCMP is racist, how the judges are he's indoctrinating a whole new generation of people by saying, oh yeah, we're bad and you're bad.
Well, and I've long said this is like generally what I've experienced, and maybe you've seen this too, Jim, is the people that often are like the most vocal about woke shit have the most checkered past. Like I always use the example of Mark Wahlberg. Like he gave an interview one time for, I think it was for Rolling Stone or something, where he went into great detail about how essentially him and like a bunch of other kids from the neighborhood stoned a fucking Asian kid that they went to school with. And it's like, Jesus Christ, Mark Wahlberg, like you literally threw rocks at a kid because of his race. And now you're like, yeah, racism is bad. No. Like you actually were racist and did racist things. Don't tell people like me who make racist jokes but have never thrown rocks at anybody that I'm worse. Do you know what I mean? Like that. And that's the world we live in now, where it's just like, well, and what the woke will tell you is, well, your jokes hurt feelings and those rocks hurt feelings, so they're the same. And I'm like,
words are violence. Yeah.
We can't live in that world that's not based in reality at all. And I would argue that the bravery that I have to go into black clubs or regular clubs and make racist jokes or racial jokes, because I don't even like when people call jokes racist.
Yeah,
it sort of implies that there's intention behind the material. So we'll call them racial jokes. But
I mean, which is perfectly fine. It's how we grew up on the schoolyard. Everyone's nickname was racially or ethnically based.
Or size, right? Like,
yeah, I mean,
if there was a fat black kid in school in the 90s, everyone called that kid Biggie Smalls. Everybody, right? That had to do with both race and his size. So, it's like, and also, but that's how you bridge the gap.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many times I've gone on stage and like hammered the audience with like racial shit. And then who comes up to talk to me at the end of the show first? Black people. And then it's like, oh, that was fun. We had fun with it.
You killed it.
And also like, how do you know some of those things? Because that's stuff that only black people know.
Yeah.
And I go, no, I know because, when I grew up, my mom dated a black guy, or this black woman I dated, her father was like that, or whatever. And it just like, it really is, it can be an olive branch between people with different backgrounds. And what happens is the woke are people who have either entirely vanilla backgrounds, so they have no cultural perspective on it at all, or their backgrounds are so bad and they've actually done horrible things to like marginalized groups or people or whatever. And they have guilt, and they have tremendous guilt about it. And then that wokeness is a manifestation of that guilt. And celebrities, it's the same thing, regardless of whether they have a checkered past. It's like they feel undeserving of their money and their fame, so they express that guilt by talking about woke things. Like, oh yeah, no, but stop Asian hate. What does that even mean?
Or yeah, and on the Asian hate thing, who's committing the crimes against Asian people?
Yeah, that's my favorite game to play is, can you find me a white one? Every time there's like, I'm on the Citizen app. I follow this thing called Street People of Los Angeles on Instagram.
What's the Citizen app?
Like, Citizen app is it's like an app on iPhone. I think they're on Android as well, where people report like the crimes that are happening or going on. So it's almost like a police scanner app.
Yeah.
And so like if there's a robbery in your neighborhood, you can see. If there's a shooting, you can see it. Like you get notifications about that stuff. And So it's just people alerting other people on the app, like, this is what the fuck's going on in our neighborhood right now. It's kind of like Next Door, but it's more crime focused, or as I call it, black people next door. But anyway, but that's the crazy thing is I'm like, all right, cool. Like, let me scroll through this and find the crazy white guy who stabbed a random girl on Santa Monica 3rd Street Promenade. And they just don't exist. They do not exist. And so how do we even begin to fix that if we can't even address that that's a reality of the situation?
Or talk about it.
Yeah, it's like, you know, if that is the case, what do we do about it? Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean, and this is the thing that's so horrific, and I always say this when we talk about legalizing drugs. I believe the main reason that the left doesn't legalize drugs is because they associate the crime in those neighborhoods strictly to the fact that drugs are illegal. What happens when you legalize drugs and the crime and the murder doesn't go anywhere and it stays the same? Then every white supremacist is going to go, we fucking told you, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But in between the white supremacists going, this is a eugenics thing, and the left pretending it has nothing to do with race, is the truth somewhere in the middle of, we have to cut to the core of why there is more violence in those communities, why there is more aggression in those communities and cultures, and what's the real root of it. And I don't disagree that fatherhood is a big part of it. I also think a big part of what I talked about in that Kanye interview article is like, what is glorified and valued in the culture? Like, murder for a long time was valued in the culture. The entire gangster rap movement was about
drugs, murder,
being a pimp, killing people. Mm-hmm. So, you know, when you have rappers rapping about killing people and blowing money and abandoning their families, and that's like baller shit, that's cool. What the fuck do you think the culture is going to be? And Candace Owens got dragged for saying this like a year ago, but she goes like, why is the black culture the only one that will take like murderers and drug addicts and put them up on a pedestal? She said this when George Floyd happened. She's like, why are all of our heroes, you know, scumbags? Right? Like, why can't we ever have people in our culture that we hold up for positive reasons and not because they got shot by the police or, you know, there's some sort of martyr? Mm-hmm. And it's an interesting question, you know, and like, I like listening to people talk about those things. And I listen, as much as I like this, I like listening to people like Killer Mike, because I feel like Killer Mike, even though he's very woke on some things, he is interested in actually talking about the real problems in those communities and real solutions for those communities, and nobody else is interested in doing those things.
Yeah, and it seems, again, I mean, I love Candace Owens too, but again, as a what do you a non-person of color, a person of non-color.
Cracker ass cracker.
You can't bring up those things, man.
Cracker. Saltine ass motherfucker.
I love it. I love. For me, it's hard to think of something that I'm offended by. You know, like, you know, I used to have this conversation with my girlfriend. I used to say, you know, if I call you a dyke, are you offended? She's like, no. I said, why? Well, because she's pretty confident about her sexuality. I said, well, if I call you stupid, are you offended? Oh, yeah. And, you know,
it's because she's a fucking retard. I get it.
She always used to say, I'll let you do the thinking, you know?
Dude, I got so when the Victoria's Secret, I shouldn't keep talking about this because I'm going to burn my joke or somebody else is going to do it as well. But I'm working on this new bit for stand-up about the Down syndrome Victoria's Secret model, Sophia Girai. And she was, I will admit, I looked at enough pictures to where I actually typed into my search bar, is it legal to fuck a retarded person? Right? Which right off the bat, like, dangerous territory. Like, you know, who knows what sirens go off when you press enter on that search bar. But it turns out that it didn't, no sirens went off because there's not a clear-cut answer. It really boils down to, does a judge and a jury, if you were to be charged, believe that that person is too retarded to consent?
Well, it should be illegal, and Gavin says the same thing, that if you have sex with somebody that's mentally challenged, I'll say you should be charged with rape because they don't have the mental capacity to consent.
But here's what's terrifying, Jim. Here's what I'll say to you that's terrifying. I've lived with my girlfriend for 10 years. I don't know how long you've been with yours, but I've seen her do some shit, and I don't have the utmost confidence that if we put her on the stand, that a judge or a jury would not find her too retarded to consent to sex with me either. So my concern is not can we fuck retarded chicks. My concern is find me one that will absolutely pass not being retarded in a court of law, because I don't know that she's out there. I mean, think about yours and all the retarded shit she's done. If I put my girlfriend on the stand and they were like, walk us through your day, and she's like, well, in the morning I wake up and I take a dump, and sometimes my legs fall asleep and I need to be helped off the toilet to get up. They'd be like, you know who else shits like that in the morning? Retarded people. And so if any of our women get put on the stand, we're all going to fucking prison, dude. I hate to tell you. They're all too retarded to fuck. If we put them on the stand and we had a real good lawyer cross them, they're all too retarded to fuck. We're doomed. And the gays have figured this out, and they're the only ones who aren't going to be in prison in 5 years.
Exactly. So I guess I was going to lead into the next question would be, do you censor your bits at all? It doesn't sound like you are.
Nope.
Are you dropping N-bombs in your Black Club bits, or have you?
And it's the thing. Like I defend to the death people's right to use whatever language they want, and other comics sort of like are intellectually dishonest about that. They're like, oh, he just wants to go into clubs and scream the N-word. It's like, no, but if it makes a joke perfect, I want to be able to. I want to have that arrow in my quiver. It's like that bit on. Bill Maher that they tried to cancel him for, and he ended up doing a mea culpa to Ice Cube, which was the dumbest thing I've ever seen. That bit was perfectly timed. You know what I mean? Like the way he delivered that line, it's like, it's absolutely perfect. And for him to apologize for that was like, that was a death blow to comedy, because it's like, he's not being racist. It's the perfect retort to what the guy across from him said. It's just the perfect retort, and it's not funny without that word. If he said I'm a house N-word, the joke doesn't land.
No,
you know what I mean? And so it's like he has to say it to fucking crush that.
And there's
joke.
no benefit of saying N-bomb or N-word, because like Avin says, soon as I say N-word, you play the word in your head. You hear it.
Yeah, we all know what I'm talking about.
Exactly.
It would be like
it's no difference. It's the only word that is segregated by class. Like it's the only word that certain people can use. And you know what? I've been saying this about the word for a long time. I love the fact that the black community took the word back and made it look so ridiculous that they use it on each other to just make, in other words, we're going to use it on each other to prove to you that it means absolutely nothing to us. Me
and my friends use it on each other all the time, and it's 10 times funnier because we're white. Yeah. I mean, this is what people don't understand. Is like people go, there's no. Have you ever seen two white guys call each other that word? It's fucking hilarious. It's hilarious. And it's just because it's so absurd. That's the thing, is like, yeah, it's absurd. And by the way, so is it totally fine if I jump on my podcast and I go, you know, I don't think N-words are even 3/5 of a people. I think N-words are subhuman animals, and N-words really, like, that would be way worse. Right? But I'm using the right words, so is that fine? It's just this is how fucking stupid these people are. Yeah. It's like, yeah, wouldn't you rather me say the word in an endearing way than avoid the word and actually be a white supremacist? Like, can we have a real honest conversation about are you too fucking stupid to realize what people are saying or not saying? You know, and this is now the line I take about it is like, I can't remember how I said it on Twitter. It was like perfect. You do have a pretty perfect Twitter feed, man. There's no holds at bar. Have you never been canceled from Twitter? They made me delete one tweet one time ever. And the joke was, you're over 100K. That's a good account, man. Yeah. Before I get on. Oh no, I said the liberal left wants us fighting over the N-word because they think black people are too stupid to know the difference between it being used in a joke and being used as a slur. And I don't think you're too stupid to know the difference. And they made you take that one down. No. That one's fine. But I was saying that was the tweet that like perfectly encapsulated the way that I'm having this conversation now. Is people go, I don't think you should use it in that context. I go, no, it's fine. You're smart enough to know the difference, right? And if you're not, then you're a fucking idiot. That's the line. But the joke they made me take down was, I said, It was when Billie Eilish's documentary came out or whatever. It might have been before that. But I said, Billie Eilish's music is so bad that we should have fed as many children as we needed to Michael Jackson. And that was the joke that they were like, you got to delete this.
Really?
And I was like, really? Of all the things I've said, there's no slurs in it. There's nothing. Wow. But, people reported it as if it was like pro pedophilia. And it's like, no, it's pro comedy.
I still don't think Michael Jackson was a pedo. I think he was a weirdo, but I don't think
I think he was asexual. And I believe the rumors that he was chemically castrated at like 12 or whatever. So I think in a weird way, he was like living out a boyhood fantasy. I really don't believe there was anything sexual about it. And I don't believe like they go, oh, there were moments where like housekeepers or whatever saw him looking at his penises with the other kids. And it's like, yeah, but 12-year-olds do that with each other. Like 12-year-olds in the locker room would be like, ew, look, he's got a weird dick. Look at your dick. Like it's not sexual. It's just what 12-year-olds do. So if he was a 12-year-old in the brain, it makes sense. I agree with you. I don't think he was molesting kids. But I said what was hilarious is I said fed. And I didn't say let him have sex with. I don't even know if I said fed. I might have just said we should have given him as many children as he needed or something like that. Which, again, that's what I love about the way I do stand up and write is because everything that's offensive about it is in the mind of the listener. Like most of the time, it's not what I actually said.
That's what makes it funny too. I mean, how many comedians go, see? Yeah, like they call you on your racism because you're like, oh, you think it's so funny, and I just proved that you're the racist. I'm not the one on stage.
It's the joke I do about slavery. I go, I'm lazy as shit. If it were legal, I would totally have slaves. And then sometimes the audience will get tight, and I'll go, I just want to point out I didn't say what color they'd be. You just fucking guessed because you guys are racist. And it's a ton of fun. Like what's really great about that is if you have like a real good mixed audience. Like the best time I ever did that joke was in the original room at the Comedy Store. And the audience was just happened to be like perfectly black and half white. And they were almost segregated. Like there were more black people on the right side of the room than the left. And so when I said that line of like, I didn't say, like the white people got nervous. The black people were almost like, what's he going to say? What's he going to say next? And when I said, I just want to point out I didn't say what color they'd be. The white people got super fucking embarrassed. And then the black people started raining shit on the white half of the audience. Like, oh shit, he fucking got you, dude. Oh, you did. He's right. You did pick us. You picked us again. And then I started going in on the black half of the audience being like, oh, like you motherfuckers wouldn't have all the slaves. Look how lazy you guys are. I go, I bet 3 or 4 of you would have needed your slaves to hold the table because you're fucking late here tonight. Oh, I was having fun with it, man. And it's like, you can have fun with people and joke about that stuff.
It's what it is to be human, man.
Nobody wanted to fight me after that show. It was fun. They knew we were having fun. I want to get back to doing shit that's fun. And that's what I like about doing stuff on Censored TV with Gavin, because I feel like we're in this weird niche of the right. You got Ben Shapiro, who's like the super serious religious conservative right. And then you've got like Turning Point USA, which is kind of like the fun, really buttoned up kind of Amish Hitler Youth right conservative side, which is fine. Like they're like, we have guns and our women dress like Little House on the Prairie. It's fine. We take 10s and we make them look like 6s. That's what we do. That's what conservatism is. And I go, that's fine. You got the Puritans, you got the conservative Jews. We're like the punk rock National Lampoon side of conservatism. Like that is what I see us being. And that's what psychs me up about making shit like Next Week Tonight over there or Big Uglies. Like to me, Next Week Tonight has the opportunity to be like what the Lampoon was in the 70s. You know what I mean? Like really going after the idea of what's acceptable or appropriate. And almost like having this sort of Mad Magazine vibe of like, I don't care how offensive it is. The writers meeting I had before this, I was like, I literally want you to think like, where's the line? And then I want you to throw yourself over it. Like that is where I want this season to go. I want the clips of this show to be things that get shared around the internet. Like, oh my fucking God, can you believe they made this joke? Because that's what comedy used to be. And now it's so far away from that.
The more outrageous, the more funny.
It's bumper bowling. I made a joke in season 1 about Usher's kids drowning. So that's how fucking edgy season 1 got. Where I joked about how I can't even remember the setup of it, but I was joking about how the the two biggest things that black people are afraid of in movies is type 2 diabetes and shallow bodies of water. And I showed the final scene of Black Panther where they're literally fighting in like a half a foot of water. And I go, and then at the end of it, I go, if you don't think it's that, if the stakes are that high or if it's that serious of a problem for black people, just ask Usher's children, which is only funny if you know that one of them did drown in their pool in the backyard and the other one almost drowned in their pool in the backyard, which you would think like, maybe you're not a pool family after almost 2 children die. Maybe it's like, maybe you be the house that doesn't have the pool, you know? But it is one of those things of like, how many people are going to make that joke? Like I made a Nick Cannon's baby died joke the fucking day after it happened. Like, and that's what, to me, that's what a current events news show should be. Like, and if it's on the internet, shouldn't it be more severe and harsh than anything on TV? Mm-hmm. So that's the challenge for season 2. And that's part of the reason why we've taken so much time off is I've really wanted to make sure I get the right dudes in to write with me. And I want to make sure that it's not just reliant on how many good jokes I can write in a week, but it's how many the 3 of us can write. And even being on the call and fucking around, I'm like, dude, we're going to make some real awesome shit this season.
I'm looking forward to that.
They're both really funny guys. And one of them is like really dry and sarcastic. And the other one is just a sledgehammer, man, and really fucking funny.
You think the pendulum swings back? And what do you think the impact of Rogan's apology is on the community, especially in comedy?
I think honestly, I don't think it changes anything. I think it's disappointing for people like me that were fans of Joe's, but I also understand it. I also know that as you get older, you have less fight in you. And so a guy who's 53 or 54 is not going to be like Joe at my age was way more gung-ho and way more in your face and would have never apologized for it. And so it would be unreasonable and unfair for me to go, fuck him. Because if I'm 54 and I have a black daughter and I have hundreds of millions of dollars, is that really my fight anymore? Is that a battle for me? Or do I just do what makes my life easier? It's hard to say, but I'd like to think that, I'm never going to change, but I'm sure he would have said the same thing at 38 too. So I don't think it changes anything. I think the people that were pussies before Joe's apology are still pussies. I think the people who were doing whatever they wanted before Joe's apology are going to keep doing whatever they wanted. I don't think it changes anything. But it did bum me out though.
You think the pendulum does swing back though?
Yeah, I'm betting on it. I think Gavin is too. I mean, I think that's the investment in censored TV is like saying when this pendulum swings back, where are you going to be when it comes back around? Because anybody who tries to be edgy when that comes back in style, who was a pussy beforehand, everyone's going to know it's fake.
Right.
We're going to have the receipts. Like, remember when you were telling people they're not allowed to make fun of people's race and now you're doing it? Mm-hmm. So I just think, and even if the pendulum never fully swings back around, I'm fine having like a cult following, a cult group of people that do think anything goes and anything can be funny.
Well, he's popular enough. I know he's been working on it a long time, but at 25,000 subs at $10 a month, that's pretty respectable.
Not nothing. Is that the number, by the way? I've heard different numbers.
Talking. Yeah, I mean, he was at 20 for a long time, and I think he's been trotting out 20, 25 lately. So
yeah, that's not the goal, by the way. My goal is 100,000 subscribers. I think that's close to what The Wire has.
Wow.
Yeah, I think they're right around. I think they're between, because they were at 50 before the move to Nashville. So I think they got to be around 100,000 monthly subscribers. And we're going to make better shit than them. Like, that's the thing. It's like, we get to 100,000 subscribers, we can make Animal House. You know what I mean? Like, that's the goal. The goal is to be, this is the other thing. What's the last fucking really funny comedy movie you've seen that's come out in the last 10 years? There isn't one. There isn't one. You know what I mean? So like, I just want to get back to, where people have the balls to make comedy, and people should, anybody watching this who isn't subscribed to Censored, subscribe. Like, that's what we need. We need subscribers. And the more subscribers we get, the more, finances we have to do shit and to make cool shit. And the thing I love about Gavin is he's very much like, dude, if we have the resources, fucking go get it. Like, go do it. Go have fun with it. He doesn't care if it's, there's no line. There's no, oh, that's too far. That's inappropriate. There's none of that. And so, that's why I laugh when people are like, Josh, go do stuff with the Daily Wire. I go, why? So I can be slapped on the wrist every day?
Yeah, well, that's the, what do they call it? What's Michelle Malkin call it? The Ben Shapiro's, I don't know, but they're the conservatives that will censor you in a minute.
Yeah.
As soon as you step out
I call it the puritanical right.
Mm-hmm.
And that's very much like, and you kind of have that on both sides with like Turning Point and Daily Wire, where they're both very puritanical, right? Mm. Like, we like women that carry guns. Cool, I like that. And don't have sex until marriage. Wait, what? Like, that doesn't sound cool. That sounds really, really backwards. So, I like a woman with a gun. I also like a woman with a dirty mind. Can we combine those two things?
Mm.
So, this idea that we're going to restore women to like what they looked like back when they were on coins is not appealing to me. I'm not really interested in a lot of like 18th century coin pussy. You know what I mean? So.
Cool, man. What else you got coming up? What should we look for other than what we've talked about already? Oh, I didn't know you were a musician either.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. What gave that away?
Oh, did you have a pick in your hand
because
earlier?
The article?
Yeah, the article too. But did you?
Yeah. No, I've played guitar since. So I'm not really a musician. I played guitar since I was 7, and I was in bands and everything through my teenage years, and always was playing with older guys. I started bands and went out and gigged and toured and did all that stuff. Metal bands in my late teens and early 20s. And then when I got into stand-up at 23, I pretty much stopped everything musical. And I would still pick up my guitars from time to time and play and jam out or whatever. But I haven't even really picked up my guitars in a while. And I live with my girlfriend. I don't know if you do, but mine does this thing where we'll be watching something and she's like, I got to go to the bathroom. And then she'll be up and around the fucking house for an hour doing nonsense, right? Like, and so you got like, okay, what can I watch that's 10 minutes or 20 minutes or 30, you know what I mean? Like, so that I can watch it, because she's going to be more than a minute, but she's not going to be long enough for me to watch a movie or a show in between the fucking movie or the show we're supposed to be watching. So I started watching a lot of these like guitar videos, gear videos, restoration videos, and I have a 1972 Les Paul custom copy, which was like one of the Penko copy, which was like one of the Japanese lawsuit guitars that were basically spec for spec a Gibson Les Paul. Mm-hmm. And I started restoring it.
Damn good guitar too.
Oh, amazing. And I started restoring it, and I like it more than a Gibson because it has a really thin neck, because it was made in Japan and they have little tiny Chinese fucking Japanese hands like I do. So it was perfect for me. And that was the guitar I learned on from the time I was 7 until I started getting my own guitars when I was like 15. I got an Ibanez, a bunch of Ibanezes, Jacksons, I was playing Schecter when I was touring, which I now live like 5 minutes from the Schecter factory, which is kind of interesting. They're in Sun Valley and I'm in Burbank. But I pulled this thing out and I had started a restoration on it, 15 years ago, and never did it. And I have all the parts. So I was like, I'm finishing this guitar. So I literally just ordered the wiring harness today, or all the electronics for it to get the pickups going. And then of course I start going in and I go, all right, I need this hardware. I need this, why don't I just change this? Why don't I change that? So I just went through and went nuts and got a bunch of stuff, but hopefully I'll have that guitar up and running again pretty soon. And then I have a Sterling Music Man copy. I really like Ernie Ball guitars. They're kind of random. Not a lot of people play them, but I really like the feel of them. So they're like really short. They're kind of like Telecasters, but they're a little beefier and they have a little bit more real staticky, dirty sound, which I like. Mm-hmm. So I still have that guitar, and it still has the factory strings on it from when I bought it. So those need to be replaced. But technology is so crazy. Like when I was playing guitar when I was, this was like 99, 2000, you had to have an amp just to practice on or jam out in your house. There was no other technology. Now you can plug your fucking guitar into your computer and play every amp that's ever been invented ever. It's so wild. So this morning I just plugged the Ernie ball into my audio interface and was playing around with this app called Amplitude, which is every amp that's ever existed.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh my God, this is insane. And like, you can blend them. So I'm like, oh, I have a Roland JC 120 with a Marshall JCM 900 and I can blend the two. And, shit that I never had the money to do when I was playing music. Like I would just go through phases. So initially I was like, no, I am an Ibanez RG PV 5150 guy. And then I was like, no, I'm a dual humbucker Marshall guy. And I went through that phase. And then, I went through my phase of like baritone guitars and I was playing a Mesa triple rectifier at the end of my time playing. And so like, I always had good gear. The most expensive guitar I ever bought. It was like, I took a credit card out when I was like 20 years old and then went right to Guitar Center and bought a Paul Reed Smith, like custom, like a $2,700 guitar, like an asshole. Ended up selling it like 6 months later because my band broke up and I was like, well, I'm not gigging with this. There's no need in having a $3,000 guitar.
Wow.
So, I had a job where I was making like 50 grand a year and I was buying fucking $3,000 guitars. And, I thought I was going to be a famous musician. So I was like, this is an investment. And then, so I sold that. I downgraded. I was playing Yamaha guitars for a while, which I also love. So kind of like comedy and everything else. I like playing the stuff that nobody else plays. So I think that's why I have an affinity for like Yamaha guitars and Music Man guitars. The craftsmanship's really good and not everybody has them.
Cool, man. Give us some people to follow and listen to. Who do you think's funny? Who are you listening to? Podcasts or anything? Because
I'm so excited for Ryan Long's stand-up special.
Okay.
Really funny Canadian comedian, lives in New York now. I think he's one of the funniest dudes. And, when I talk to Gavin about like people we should target to bring over to Censored, he's at the top of the list.
Nice.
I think, Ryan is hilarious and really funny. And I can't wait to see what it's like. He did a funny teaser on it that I shared on Twitter, which was sort of like a lot of his sketches, where he said, I would describe my style of comedy as exclusively using white women's names as punchlines. And then literally goes on to like mock woke comedy for the next, minute of the clip. But
nice.
Really funny dude, does really great sketches and shorts. Shane Gillis is another one. The Gillian Keefe sketches they did over the pandemic are funnier than anything SNL's done in 40 years.
Oh, SNL is just a waste of time. And it has been for so long.
So those are the guys I like the most. I'd say Gillis, Ryan Long. Who else out there do I really like? Yeah, as far as like actually making comedy content, I'd say those are probably my two favorites. And then as far as podcasts, I mean, you and I listen to the same stuff. I listen to Anthony, Chrissy, Gino. I listen to Gino and Aaron when I can. I listen to Gavin. I've been tuning into Gavin almost every day now, just because it's part of my routine. And
yeah.
So there's not a lot of I don't really get to go through and sort of discover stand-up like I did in the early days, because the clubs are still like with the masks and the vaccines and everything else. But I think I love stand-up and love other people that are very good at stand-up the same way I did when I started. Like, I'm not one of those guys that's like, oh, if it's not me, then it's shit. Like, no, if there's really good people, I'll tell you about them.
I think I'm still getting over, I thought I was going to have to break up with Gavin. I'm still getting over the fact that I actually had to check myself for gills after the Ryan Katsu Rivera firing, man. I was so pissed, and I was drunk down here at my local. And you
fell for it?
Totally.
Come on, Fannon.
Yeah, I know.
You
after
didn't
all
see
of that. After all of it, even when I was presented with proof, I had my first case of mass formation psychosis. You could not convince me that it wasn't real.
This is the problem with you guys that watch every day, is that you'll fall for that shit. Like at the time I was watching, I really haven't watched every day until after we did the marathon. And then I was like, okay, that now, and with Maddie there, I just feel like there's a lot more bits. And I love Ryan's impressions, so he's doing more of that on the show now. And so
the face swaps.
I started watching more and more with the face swaps.
And I was drunk in my local down here, and I had this most vile, fuck you, I'm unsubbing. And I pulled it, and the next day I'm like, oh, yeah, I think I heard Ryan's voice in the background when Joe was running the board. I'm like, oh, fuck, I'm an idiot. They got me.
Dude, I didn't even have the inside scoop on that, and I knew it was full of shit. And I did.
That's why I felt so fucking bad for myself, because I was just like, I can't believe I fell for this, because it's exactly their speed. It's exactly what they do, and I just
they'll do stuff like that all the time. I mean, like, that's Gavin's speed. Like there were like rumors going around one time. I don't know if Milo started them or somebody, but they're like that the network was going under.
Yeah, Milo.
And so Gavin's like, I'm gonna start having like lights shut off, and like we're just gonna not do the show for a week. And he'll lean into shit like that. Like he'll fuck with the audience on stuff like that, which is fun. I like somebody who's like, if they think we're out of money, let's let them believe we are.
Play it up.
Yeah, it's great. Like, sometimes leaning into the bullshit people say about you is funnier than rejecting it or denying it.
Yeah, I've learned that.
Yeah.
All right, brother. I love you. I got to get out of here because,
likewise, man.
Gavin's coming up soon. I can't miss the live show, dude. It's Thursday night.
There you go.
So thanks for the time. I appreciate, and it's kind of I got a lot of time for Maddie too, because guys like you and Maddie, talk to your fans. You know what I mean? Like, and you try and get a reply from Gavin or what. If you send him an email that's so dramatic and full of bullshit, he'll respond to it just because he wants to tell you what an idiot you are. But that's what I like about you guys. You're accessible, and you communicate with your fans, which is great, man.
Don't take that personally, because I'll tell you, there are days where I'll text Gavin or I'll call him and we'll be on the phone for an hour. And then, like, I'll send him 5 things over the course of a week, and I won't get a response. Like, I've sent him 5 things since Monday. One of them was an idea of something that I was like, we should do this on your show, and I think it'd be really funny.
Right.
And nothing. And it's not because it sucks. I think he probably loves it. He just gets busy with shit, man. And like, so you just can't take that stuff personally.
No,
he does, and then we'll get wrapped up, and then he'll call me, and we'll be on the phone for an hour and a half, and I hadn't heard from him for like 2 months. So it just happens that way, man. And the dude is like, he's paddling most of the oars on the ship that is censored right now. I'm trying to do more in terms of creating content and stuff, and trying to help out to where that it's the old many hands lightens the load, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm trying to do my part and step up and do more stuff. We'll see if we keep doing the sports show over there. It seems like everybody liked it.
Yeah, it was great, and it was a good introduction to another talent too. I didn't know who Spitz was, so
he's very funny. Like he did just hit himself in the head before we started that, so he was not his normal, riffing impression self at the beginning of that. But he does one of the best trumps of anybody I know.
Oh, really?
He does a great John Gruden impression, which he'll bring out on the show all the time.
Don't even talk about Gruden, man. That's a sensitive spot.
He's got some good ones.
Gruden's one of the best football men ever, and a good man. And I love the story that he told. He went to his doctor and said, "Doc, I'm only sleeping like 3 hours a night." And he says, "So how do you feel?" He says, "Fine." He says, "So what are you worried about? Go to work." Because he'd be at the office at 4:30 in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning, because he was just watching film and obsessed with it. And that whole takedown of Gruden, like he's one of the best football minds ever, and to see him take a knee, and I mean, I guess he was up against it, but that was so much bullshit. I love John Gruden.
Yeah,
and he was an Eagles coach. And you got to get over Carson Wentz, man. He ain't all that in a bag of chips.
I'm not saying he's top 10. He's a top 10 quarterback in the league.
Yeah, I give you that.
That's the thing.
And you don't get top 10s everywhere.
People act. I'm not saying he's fucking Aaron Rodgers, but people talk about him like he's Daniel Jones, and it's like, this guy was MVP, led the Eagles to the season. The only Super Bowl they've ever won.
That's true.
Okay, and last year it's like what Colin Cowherd says: 27 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, 95% completion percentage. Was it all pretty? No, but it still puts him in the top 10 of quarterbacks in the league. So, like, let's be realistic. And it is because he's a redhead, and I stick by it. People hate gingers. They can't admit it. It's just racism, just like with Kaepernick. And I will not let it go. I'll be out. I'll listen, whatever team he goes to, I'll buy his jersey, and I'll be at the games with my sunscreen on, saluting him.
Yeah. And you're totally off the Eagles, I guess.
Yeah, no, fuck the Eagles. No, I'm off Howie Roseman. That was the thing, and almost more so than the Carson Wentz thing that bothered me was the way they did Deuce Staley. You know, Deuce Staley should have gotten a year.
Oh, yeah, I agree with you completely.
as a head coach to like run it and see how it goes. You know what I mean? And you know, give the guy. He had been with the organization for 2 decades. Give the guy a run.
Yeah, no, I agree completely.
So I didn't like that. That was where I was like, and then I hated the Nick, whatever his name.
Foles.
What's his name?
Nick Foles.
No, the coach.
Oh,
Sirianni. I hated the Sirianni hire. You know, I listen, and I'll say this till I'm blue in the face. I'm sick of white coordinators with visors being put on a pedestal as coaches. None of them ever worked out. Like, I look at guys like DeMeco Ryans, who were great leaders on the field, who also now can scheme a great defense with the Niners. How the fuck is that guy not at the top of everybody's list? You know, he's a guy who played the game. When you talk about,
well, if the NFL would just put quotas in, it'd fix everything.
Yeah, but see, that's not the right answer either. Like, you don't want a quota, but listen, I'm not a quota guy, but you can't tell me that the Rooney Rule is actually having the opposite effect. Because they have to interview black candidates, there's almost like this resentment towards them, and they aren't getting a fair shake. So, you know, you can't tell me that throughout the last 10 seasons, there hasn't been a black candidate who showed up as like a guy who wasn't even on their radar and wowed everybody and won the job. That just doesn't happen ever. It happens all the time with white dudes in the NFL. Like, Sirianni wasn't on the list of coaches for the Eagles at all. And then he comes out of nowhere. Oh, that's fine. But where are those candidates that are black dudes who come out of nowhere and wow you?
Yeah, and like Deuce has given his whole career to the city and the team, you know what I mean? And was a he was a great coach, man.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, like, I do believe, you talk about black men needing father figures. Why is Andy Reid so successful? Every player that's ever played for him has been like, he's like a second father to me. So when we talk about black men needing real leadership, do you think a guy like Nick Sirianni is going to be a better leader than somebody like Eric Bieniemy? Get the fuck out of here, dude. You were a Division III wide receiver in college ball. You were a coordinator on a team that barely won any playoff games and you're fucking mediocre. Your whole career has been mediocre. Eric Bieniemy played in the NFL at the highest fucking level for a decade, and then has coached at the NFL at the highest level for a decade. You know, was a head coach at Colorado State or whatever. So he's been a head coach. He's got all the experience in the world. He obviously can scheme and call plays. What are we doing? You know, it's just this weird. It's Sean McVay sensationalism. Everybody loves Sean McVay. They love what he did. They love the idea of like the young white coach,
Chucky Jr. And
it's like, that's not the fucking future of football. And these teams are going to suck. These teams, like, sorry, but Mike McDaniel in Miami, you think that little pencil neck fucking homo is going to walk up to a 6'9", 350-pound black guy and get him to play harder? There's no way. There's no way. He might suck his dick into submission and be like, all right, I'll fucking play for you, coach. That's the best head I've ever had.
Shit, almost got out of
nerd. That nerd is not getting is not coaching anybody up to play ball. It ain't happening.
Fuck, we got to end it there, man. Fuck it, that's the strongest note ever. I thought I got out of this interview without getting canceled, but maybe I'll get a strike tonight. Who knows? Anyways, there you go. Much respect, my brother. Never stop the self-deprecation. I fucking love it, and it makes it okay for me. I had a few drinks the other night, and I started doing a little promo. I don't know if what it was, but I was not kind to you, and it felt so fucking good, bro.
That's fine.
So I'm going to cut you loose, and I'm going to pimp out your links here a little bit, and
all right, man.
Get on to Get Off My Lawn Live. Love you, brother.
All right, cool, buddy.
Peace out.
Later.
Ciao. That's how you do that. Josh Denny. Wow. Always a solid interview and a good laugh. I mean, stand-up comedians aren't always funny when you interview them, but that kid is funny and fat and ginger and it's perfect. Anyways, Josh Denny, here's how you can find him. How do I get out of my view here? Exit. Drag this over. Fresh Dumps. I'm not sure what this is. I'm not completely up on all his stuff. This is JoshDennyComedy.com. Here, maybe I'll slide this down so you can see the URL. Oh, you have to zoom in close, but JoshDennyComedy.com. Here he is on the Twatter at Josh Denny. Here he is next week tonight with Josh Denny, which will be coming back soon. He hasn't done a show since the end of the year. Season 1 just finished up. Here he is on the gram. Instagram.com/Josh Denny. Jenkum. Fucking idiot. Jenkum. What the fuck is Jenkum? It's a Josh. I'm completely sober. A Josh Denny podcast. That's where you find him here. The links are in the show description below. Here's his fan page on the Facebook. Here's his YouTube channel. Here he is on IMDB. Did you know that I have an IMDB page? For real. Watch. Actor, fight. Oh, how come I can't? Put a picture up for me. Well, I thought I subscribed to IMDb Pro so I could change my picture. Yep. I'm the boss in fight. You know it. And here, this is the wiki thing, so that's it. I'm out. Head on over to censored.tv. I think you can watch the first 30 minutes free. See how I didn't say for free? You can watch it free because you could watch it for $10 a month, for $10 a month, or you can watch it free. Free does not require the preposition for. It's a preposition, right? Yeah. Anyways, thanks to my guest, Josh Denny. He's always been generous with his time, and he is always hilarious as fuck. And sorry to Facebook, I promoted it so much on Facebook, but then for whatever reason, the feed didn't go out. We went out to Trew.Tube. We went out to YouTube on the Trew.Tube channel on YouTube. We went to DLive and Twitch. I'm watching it right now on YouTube, so we're there. But the Facebook feed did not roll out tonight for whatever reason. So, peace, love, hug your neighbor, whatever you do. Rip that mask off your face. It's not doing anything. I love you. I am out.